Howdy, it's Jim Morado, and it's early September 2020, and we are going into Badlands National Park. Badlands National Park, this would actually be our second trip there. We went there in 2012, and then we went there again this year, in 2020.
Lifetime pass.
If you're a senior. Okay.
Hi there.
Ready?
If we just keep following the main road, does it take you back out to the interstate?
You have to come out over by the town wall.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And that was us stopping to pay our admission into the park and just asking for some very brief directions there, which they gave us. Yeah, this was the first national park that we would stop at on this trip. It's as you're driving through South Dakota, especially coming from, a place where we would be coming from, coming from the east, you're driving west throughout the state. And it's a very long state with a lot of billboards, many of them advertising wall drug, kind of close to where we are now. And the little guy selling us our ticket mentioned that we would come out in the town of Wall. So this is kind of the first park a lot of people go to as they're starting their western South Dakota adventure. There's also the Minuteman Missile Silo, which is further east. We would have passed it on the way here. We actually stopped there on our last trip, which was last year, 2019, and that's a really cool park to visit. And that park obviously focuses on the Cold War, and unlike Custer State Park, unlike Badlands National Park and some of the other parks we would see on this trip, that's more of a historic park. You're not going there to see wildlife. You're going there to learn about history and to see a decommissioned missile silo. So that's something to check out later. When we were there in 2019, I didn't videotape it. We just took some pictures. I've got pictures of that up on my blog, KentuckyTravels.blogspot.com. And we actually took a tour of the decommissioned missile silo, and that was really exciting. But like I said, we're at Badlands right now, just driving through kind of the front part. Haven't got to the really exciting stuff yet. And with it being 2020, and with all of us living in coronavirus right now, they were handling things a certain way here. We drive a little bit, and we stopped. I want to say we stopped at one or two of the little pullover areas where you can, just kind of see what's going on at Badlands. It's. I hate to keep using the word otherworldly describing some of the parks out here, especially the Badlands, but it's very otherworldly. But we did stop at a visitor center, and they were kind of controlling how many people could go in and how many people could go out. We stopped at that same visitor center back in 2012, and it was crowded. Just a lot of people there, a lot of people coming in and out. And there was a pretty good batch of people trying to get in on this day, but they were controlling how many people could be inside of the visitor center at once. And they had a little fella, kind of watching the door, and if a couple people came out, he'd let a couple people go in, and all that. But so they had a little visitor center set up, and then they also had a kiosk kind of tent thing set up out front, where there were some rangers. If you had questions, they'd give you maps and that that sort of thing. And they also had the national park passport cancels. So if you're like me and you have your little passport book and you want to get your book stamped showing that you were there and what day you were there, they had something set up. They had something set up for you to do that. So that was kind of nice. So we stopped at the visitor center for a little bit, picked up our patches and postcards. I believe this is the very first pullover area where there's just a kind of a short hiking trail you can walk on. And we did that. Some little warning signs there. Okay. And this is a park that kind of, I almost have this fantasy of when I'm retired. I just want to go somewhere like this and step off of the walking trail and just walk for several hours and just see what you come to. Of course, those beware of rattlesnake signs might discourage me from ever doing that. But so yeah, here we are, and this could have been a great filming location for Star Trek or some old sci-fi show. I mean, you just really feel like there you go. You feel like you're on another planet. I ended up taking several panoramic photos here, just because the area is so pretty. And you did see some people kind of get off trail and kind of go out into that. But there's kind of some nice built trails, and you can stay on those and get a good look at stuff. But and that seems to go on forever. And there's actually, it just seemed like a ton of these little pull-off areas where you could kind of go and walk and get more scenery like this. But this is the very first one, and it just blows your mind. So yeah, you saw some people climbing on the rocks as we came through. Lots of little families stopping here. This was a good little. It's not even really a hike. You're walking maybe 5-10 minutes to get here, and it's very even. It was just a very easy spot to get to and a great stop to make. As you're driving around the Badlands National Park. When we were here in 2012, there was another stop we stopped at, and we asked this little couple if they would, take a photo of us. We took their photo, then they took a picture of us, and the little guy taking our picture, man, he got a great picture, by the way, but he was stepping back, and we actually said like, hey, watch it, you're going a little far back, but he was just about an inch from falling backwards, and he didn't. Everything was good, but it shook us up a little bit. We felt bad for asking him to do the picture thing, but he laughed it off. Everybody was happy. But this is the kind of place where a fall could definitely happen. And I've read several of the Death in the National Park books. I just read the Death in Yellowstone book and the Death in the Grand Canyons book I read a long time ago. I am curious how many accidents happen at this park, though, just because it's so up and down. It's so rocky, and there's some serious heights here, and if you're not careful, you could definitely hurt yourself pretty easily. I mentioned us stopping at that visitor center early on, and they were, they kind of had a timed entry thing, and that was nice. It wasn't very crowded, and we stopped and got our postcards and a few little things we always get at national parks. Talked to a couple of rangers, and that was a lot of fun. But again, with Corona right now, there's a certain distance. When you go talk to a national park ranger, everybody's got a mask on. Everybody's kind of standing apart. I do look forward to going to the parks when this is all over with, but this was a good time to go out to the Badlands. This was a good time for us to go out to South Dakota, and we thought, we can hit Devil's Tower, we can hit Theodore Roosevelt National Park, Mount Rushmore, Custer State Park. We can hit those parks, and for the most part, you're driving. These are good drivable areas. You're in your car. You're not really dealing with people too much, and even when you get out and you walk along the trails, people are pretty sane. They're keeping their distance. You're not really bumping up against people or anything like that. So this was, we took this South Dakota trip again just because of that mostly. We knew that we could enjoy the parks, we can enjoy America while still social distancing. And by the way, yeah, there was the visitor center. There was kind of the little line and stuff, just kind of showing you how they were taking care of stuff. So that's us leaving the visitor center parking lot and kind of getting back on the road. But I usually really enjoy the visitor centers. They usually show a movie and there's rangers, maybe doing a little talk. Might be a little museum in the visitor centers, but they were very most of the national park visitor centers right now are kind of minimal. You're not quite getting as much as you usually do, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. At least I'm glad that they're open, and I'm glad you can still visit them, and they're trying to be as safe as they can be. So I'm always grateful and appreciative for the visitor centers. Also, I wanted to mention on this particular trip, we ended up buying at Devil's Tower. When we went to Devil's Tower, we bought the America the Beautiful National Park Pass, and they're at this moment they're $80, I believe. But we've usually not. Well, that was the first time we bought the America the Beautiful Park Pass, because here in Kentucky and some of the other states we go to, mostly Tennessee, but we're in Indiana a bit, Illinois, Ohio. Most of the national parks and park units in those states, there's not an entry fee. If you go to Mammoth Cave National Park or Smoky Mountains, the Great Smoky Mountains, there's not an entry fee. So buying the America the Beautiful National Parks Pass doesn't help you any. However, when you go out west, all of the parks have kind of, I think it's a good deal. I think $80 to get into Badlands is a good deal, but that's still pricey, for most, especially if you got a family. That's a little steep. I can understand people not wanting to pay that. So if you buy the America the Beautiful Pass, it might help you if you're more out west. I did notice, one of the parks we went to, I did notice a little couple. They looked young, and they were walking towards the entrance of one of the parks. And when they saw the entry fee prices, they turned around and walked back. Maybe they just hoped to go in and stick their head in for a few minutes. It was towards the end of the day. I think maybe they were just like, hey, we're at the national park, let's just go walk up there and say we were there. And I think once they saw the prices, they changed their mind, and I totally understand that. But I do love the parks. I love supporting them. In fact, I do donate money to them. But so we finally bought the main pass. That it was the first time we've ever bought that, but we bought it on this trip, and it ended up saving us $5 on all of the parks we visited. And again, this little area, I remember us stopping there in 2012, and we just thought it was really, really attractive. And I was talking to someone else who'd been to the Badlands in the last couple of years, and we were talking about how you cannot take a bad picture. It just doesn't happen. I've got more video up on this YouTube channel from our trip in 2012. I think I just put up one video of that whole trip. I wasn't filming as much as I do now, and it's kind of a long video if I remember, but if you want to go back and watch that, I think I've just titled it South Dakota 2012. But I've got more video of just driving around the Badlands. This was I think I mentioned this earlier. This was our first national park that we stopped at on this trip. But as I'm going and looking through my videos and kind of editing them together, this is the last one that I'm putting together. So I've actually talked a lot about the national parks on my other videos. If you want to go back and watch those, please do. But this one was, we hit this one right before we got to Rapid City, which was kind of our home base on this trip. So we drove west through South Dakota. We stopped here just before we settled in for the evening in Rapid City. Like I said, this is the first national park a lot of people hit on their way to that western South Dakota, week of vacation. And I don't think people understand, unless you travel a lot, unless you're big into road trips, and especially national parks. When you sit down with a map, or if you get on Google Maps, or however you map things out, when you look at the western part of the state of South Dakota, it sort of hits you, man, there is just a ton to do there. I mean, you get a whole lot for your money and for your travel time. There's several significant national parks and national monuments within a short distance of each other, and the driving is pretty... I don't like urban driving. I don't like driving in big cities in general. And this is far from it. They do have those big 80-mile-an-hour interstates, but the driving is very scenic. It's pleasant. You're driving through Rapid City, which is, a big enough city, but it's not overwhelming by any means. And you're driving through, Wall, South Dakota, Custer, South Dakota. There's just, it's easy, pleasant driving to get to where you're going. And then when you get there, you're just driving mostly loops, really scenic loops. So just in this area alone, not far from where we're at, within a couple of hours, you've got Devil's Tower, which we went to on this trip. You've got Mount Rushmore, which is very close to here. You've got Wall Drug, which is a legendary roadside attraction. You've got Jewel Cave and Wind Cave, which we have not hit either of those. They've had elevator issues the last couple of times we've been in the area, and we've not been able to visit those historic caves that are both ran by the National Park Service. But they're there, and I'm itching to get to both of them. Within a 5-hour drive, you've got Theodore Roosevelt National Park, which we just went to, and I'll put another video up about it. There's also the Little Bighorn, which we've not been to, but that's big on my list to get to. There's so much to do. Lots of other little nice side attractions too. There's the Mammoth site, which is a little bit south of here. And we visited that spot in 2012 and 2019. I didn't videotape it all, but that's definitely a must-do when you're in the area. There's Bear Country USA. I put up a video about that. There's just so many crazy, amazing sights within a short distance of this spot. It's clustered, the spots are clustered, but the population is not clustered. It's not people on top of people, and that's nice. Oh yeah, and there's Custer State Park. I forgot to mention Custer State Park, which we've been to several times now, and we can't get enough of that spot either. I wanted to just, I did want to read just a tiny bit from the little brochure they give you when you go into the park. When you go into the Badlands National Park, they give you the little standard national park. I believe they're called Unigrids, the little brochures that are always just filled with great information. It talks about how the Badlands started, how it evolved, life in the Badlands. But there's a little article called Return of a Native, and I just thought this was really sweet, and I just wanted to read it real quick. I hope you don't mind. In 1981, the scientific community received astonishing news. Black-footed ferrets, thought to be extinct since the last captive specimen died in 1979, were discovered alive and well in the wilds of Wyoming. The news was encouraging, but the long-term prognosis for the ferrets was not promising. Dependent on prairies as their prime habitat and prairie dogs as their food source, these relatives of weasels are among the rarest mammals on Earth. Shrinking prairie habitat, destruction of prairie dog colonies by humans, and spread of diseases left the ferret one step away from extinction. Soon after ferrets were discovered, disease ran through the colony. By 1985, only 18 ferrets survived. Braving controversy and accepting the risks of intervention, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service biologists and state of Wyoming authorities captured the ferrets and launched a campaign to save them. Success came quickly. At 7 breeding facilities, the ferrets flourished and multiplied. With high hopes and little fanfare, 36 black-footed ferrets were released in the park in the fall of 1994. In 1995, 2 litters of ferrets were born in the wild, an important milestone on their road to recovery. More captive raised black-footed ferrets were released through 1999 with the goal of establishing self-sustaining populations. Today, biologists are optimistic about the continued success of ferrets in the region. Like reintroducing bison and bighorn sheep, black-footed ferrets have once again taken their place and added influence to the northern prairies. And I just thought that was really exciting, and I just wanted to read that real quick. Also, just a little bit about life and death in a hard country. That's the name of the article, again from the Badlands brochure that they gave me when we went into the park. And just feel free to keep looking at the scenery. Oh, hold on. There's some creatures. We didn't see as much wildlife here as we did at Theodore Roosevelt and Custer State Park, but we definitely did see some, and that's always a huge plus. And I would play this out, or I would shut up for a while and let you listen to the creatures, but there were some cars going by, and the audio is totally messed up by that. So if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and read again from the National Park brochure they gave me, Life and Death in a Hard Country. Though the Badlands seem inhospitable at first glance, the land has supported humans for more than 11,000 years. The earliest people here were mammoth hunters. Much later they were followed by nomadic tribes whose lives centered on hunting bison. The Arikara was the first tribe known to have inhabited the White River area. By the mid-18th century, they were replaced by Sioux or Lakota, who adopted the use of horses from Spaniards and came to dominate the region. Though the bison hunting Lakota flourished during the next 100 years, their domination on the prairie was short-lived. French fur trappers were the first of many European arrivals who, in time, would supplant the Lakota. Trappers were followed by soldiers, miners, cattle farmers, and homesteaders who forever changed the face of the prairie. After 40 years of struggle, culminating in the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890, the Lakota were confined to reservations. Cattle replaced bison. Wheat fields replaced prairies, and in time, gasoline-powered vehicles replaced horses. Both Lakota and homesteaders shaped this land. Lakota hunted and harvested what they needed to support their way of life. The bison that played such a vital role for the Lakota were eradicated by non-Indian buffalo hunters. Only the Lakota paintings, drawings, and artistic crafts remained, tangible memories of their lost homelands and natural environment. Anyway, just a little more information from that brochure I wanted to share with you. I thought that was just some fascinating stuff. And I love the national park brochures they give you. That's, a small amount of information, but that little bit of information often sparks fires. When I'm reading those brochures, I didn't know much about the black-footed ferret, but man, do I want to go out and find out about them now. That's I think that's exciting information. And those little brochures kind of give you just the basics. Here's the little bit you need to know as you enjoy your drive around. And often I'll read those brochures, and if we stop by the visitor center later in the day, I might pick up a book or something along those lines. I've actually not read any books about the Badlands, though, to be honest, now that I think about it. I have read several books on the Wounded Knee Massacre and South Dakota in general, but I have not read anything specifically about the Badlands. In fact, if you know of a good book about the Badlands and you want to recommend it to me, I would appreciate that. especially, you know, the cultures and the people that have lived in the Badlands. And I mentioned that we were here in 2012, and we had a really good time. We drove around, we enjoyed this. We came back in 2019, and we were trying to hit spots mostly that we did not hit in 2012. But as we were driving on I-90 towards Rapid City, you can kind of see the Badlands from the road, and you're seeing them at a distance, but it's still exciting. But when we came back this year, we wanted to spend, at least a few hours just driving around. And that yellow orange kind of erosion coloring is so freaking pretty. It's natural, but it doesn't look natural. It almost looks like some artist went out there and tried to improve on nature. It just almost doesn't look like anything natural. And I'm sorry, yeah, I watch these videos and it's like, wow. And I'll go back and watch these because there's just so much going on. But you watch it and it's like, man, I was just there. I want to go back and stand face to face with it again. The videos just don't do it justice. People pulling over to look at stuff. Yeah, but I hope you look at these. Yeah, and I guess we're leaving the park now, but I hope you check out these videos. I hope you watch something like this and go, man, I want to go to the Badlands. That's crazy. In fact, this particular car is very acquainted